Well, hello there. We want to welcome you into this conversation tonight, a conversation about suicide, self-harm, prevention, awareness. We are so grateful for you to join us here at Providence Church. My name is Jacob Armstrong. I'm one of the pastors here at Providence, and I'm here with my friend and one of our wonderful church members, Neil Sharp, who also is a private practice counselor here in our community who has helped so many of us, so many in our community. And Neil, we are so grateful for you and welcome you to our time together. I want to go over a few things with you before we get going, though. First of all, I want to make sure that you know there's also a couple other conversations that have happened if you're looking for those. One of those was for students in our community, and the other one was specifically for parents of students. You'll be able to find those through the Providence Church website and our YouTube and things like that. Tonight, though, as you join us, there are a couple things we want to make you aware of. If at any time during this session you would like prayer, you can just click that button that says request prayer. When you click that, that will take you into a live chat with one of our pastors who is there for us tonight. And you can just ask for prayer requests. You don't have to ask for anything, but someone will pray with you through the chat in that way. Also, it's possible that as Neil and I talk tonight, this could raise up some emotions in you, maybe feelings that you didn't even expect that you would have. Or you may know you're coming to the table tonight with a lot on your mind and a lot in your heart. If at any time you just need to talk to someone, we welcome you to text on your phone the word home to this number, 741741. 741741. Text the word home to that number and you will be connected immediately with a crisis counselor. So it's possible you may need to talk to somebody tonight or later. You can text the word home to that number, 741741. Neil, thank you for joining us. We're so glad that we have this time together. It's such an important topic, and it seems like, not that it would be of more importance, but it seems to be of great relevance this year with all that is going on. So we thank you to have I know you won't say it, but an expert with us who can help us talk through, think through, feel through. And so just kind of as we're getting going, tell us how you're approaching this conversation tonight, some things about suicide and self-harm that can get us going.
Well, I want to approach it authentically, genuinely, but I also want to refer to my notes from time to time. So if I look down, but there's some statistics, there's some guidelines about dealing with thoughts of suicide or someone you know, right, might be dealing with that. So I want to be very intentional and very directive on that, but also to be authentic and genuine in this.
Well, I think it's a great way to get started, just hearing some data, hearing some demographics. Some of us have encountered this in our life and we think that we're the only ones. Others may be watching and have never encountered this. Just kind of get us thinking about how many people this affects and what it looks like in our state, in our country, things like that.
Well, we know how 2020 went. Goodness gracious.
Right.
And some people say dumpster fire.
The dumpster fire, yeah.
But how bad it was. And I got statistics because statistics are generally lagging behind. So we're looking at 2019 statistics from the CDC.
Sure.
And when you look at that, it said that in 2019, the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. was death by suicide. And so also that would come down to about 47,511 folks,
wow,
which is like an average per day of 130 people. So that's just, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And if you look at the statistics in the state of Tennessee, because that's near and dear to our heart, it's a little over 1,200 folks died by suicide in 2019. And if you can imagine, I know that in this church for Christmas, we pack them in. So how many folks you get for that service?
Yeah, sure. So this room, which I know you can't see the whole thing, on a big service on Christmas, we'd be getting close to 1,000 people, in here.
So if you take that, if you look at that, that's a room packed of people that would be gone and even more. Yeah. And you would think about the impact
every day.
Yes. Well, just 1,200 in Tennessee for the year.
For the year, I'm sorry.
And so when you look at that and you think about the impact of losing that many folks, and you think about this for this congregation on a Christmas Eve service, the impact that has on the families.
So many lives.
Yes, and that many people suffering. So.
Yeah. Is there? I know you have some statistics on who is affected and what types of people, what ages of people? Can you say a little bit more about who suicide is affecting?
Yeah, this might be surprising from the CDC. It said when you look at ages between 15 and 24, they do things like rates. So between 15 and 24, the suicide rate was 13 out of 100,000. Mm-hmm. And if you go up, and we're kind of going up in years, 45 to 54 would be 19.6 per 100,000. Wow. And if you're looking at 55 through 64, it goes to 19.4 per 100,000. But this, at 85 years old and older, 20 per 100,000. Wow. So it might be like, you would think that it'd be like reversed. Yeah. But from the CDC, that's the statistics we have.
Why do you think so many people who are in that older age range, 85 and up, are considering and committing suicide?
It's a great question. I think, and I'm just kind of off the top of my head, people I see, identity. Mm-hmm. I don't know who I am. Health is failing. Yeah. Isolation, loss of different people that were so close to them and they're good friends. Yeah. And just feeling this complete isolation and aloneness. Wow. Yeah.
Hearing you say those things, those are the things that have been exaggerated, exacerbated in this season. You know, where some older folks may have had a little bit of isolation, now they're experiencing this extended period of isolation, where before they might have had identity in that I can go to church, I can serve here, I can go, do this in my community, and those things are taken away.
Well, when you study attachment theory, and I'm a nerd, so when you study attachment theory, we want to know that we have somebody that we can reach out to. Mm-hmm. Zoom is okay. Yeah. Phone calls are okay, but human touch and being with somebody physically in the room is so much more powerful and so healing. So, yeah, COVID took that away from us for a while. So that's a good point.
Thank you, Neil. Mm-hmm. We're talking about statistics, but you and I know that this represents real people. Yes. And, I've shared with you before this conversation, and many in the congregation know about my own personal experience with someone I loved that committed suicide, a boy named Clayton, who was my neighbor. Don't talk as much about my wife's 16-year-old cousin, Kevin, who committed suicide, that devastated our family. And, living through that, journeying through that, I've learned that there's a lot of stigma around suicide, and how you can talk about it, or when you've experienced it, can you talk about it, and is it okay? And so I know that's something that's on your heart, just to kind of help ease. I know some of the folks watching tonight have experienced this in their own life and have wondered, how can I deal with this? How can I talk about this? They felt suicide seems to bring up all the emotions: shame, anger, confusion, despair. So how do we, can you say just a little bit more about the stigma that surrounds suicide? It's one of the reasons we're talking about it tonight, to bring awareness.
Right. So, you can look from two different vantage points. You look from the person that's the one that's struggling with suicidal thoughts or wanting to die by suicide. And you kind of look at that. Some people around them will look at it, and the myth is, hey, they're just want attention. They're crying. What they really are crying for help. Mm-hmm. And so if we look at like the analogy of if you have some kind of lingering pain in your body, if you have a situation where you have a fever or you have some kind of inflammation, we usually get help, right? Yeah. And that's not us. We're not trying to seek attention. Right. And so that's a kind of a myth that when you start to see these things, that there's something underlying there that needs to be addressed and needs to be helped. And it's not one person. Yeah. You can have one person that tries to help it, but it takes a support network of folks to help, because one would be too many. Not enough.
Right.
Just like too many is not enough when it comes down to it to help this. So people will try to move away from that, shy away from that. Then you look from the standpoint of someone who had lost a loved one or someone they knew by suicide, and they have to go through all the this wall of silence that they're not sure what to do with this.
That's a good way of saying it.
They may actually have people that don't know what to say, or people that say stuff to them, like they're trying to give them advice and they're trying, but it just hurts even more. And they could actually get to the point where they just think people are judging me, or maybe I'm responsible for this act.
Yeah.
And they could get to the point where they just geographically want to cut off and just want to get away.
Yeah.
And so both the stigma is, hey, this happened to a loved one, and be able to reach out for help, and hey, I'm suffering, I need to reach out for help.
Yeah, I know you hinted on it there. One of the feelings that a lot of folks have when they lose someone to suicide is, of course, you're thinking, what could I have done differently? And I know personally, and also, being around family members of folks who've lost, you can't even initially no one could have convinced me that I was not culpable, or that, and so it's a real process of walking through that to come to a place of healing yourself, in that. I'm also thinking about those who maybe have attempted suicide, or maybe having those feelings right now. I mean, there's some stigma for them too, right?
Right.
I think folks who've attempted suicide, then they carry a certain shame around their family because they know the pain that it's inflicted and that kind of thing. Have you dealt with that? And in talking to folks, like people who suffer maybe with mental illness or depression or that kind of thing, they feel a stigma about themselves, right?
Yeah, because they start to isolate. They start to feel like we're going to go through the process of what it looks like to walk through to this point of death by suicide. But goodness gracious, they're dealing with something like chronic pain or mental disorder, that they just a mood disorder or something, and they just want to be out of the pain. They just don't want to carry that with them anymore. And so yeah, you run into those. And one of the statistics is that 1.3 million people attempt suicide in 2019. Now that's a lot of folks, and so this is a lot of people that are hurting that says, I think that what we call a momentary lapse of reason, saying, hey, I think this is the answer.
As we're talking, Neil, and thank you for allowing me to be your pastor as well as your friend, it's making me think of it, how this connects to our story, to the biblical story, to the biblical narrative. And we see people in the Bible, right, who are exhibiting some of the feelings that would lead to suicide, depression. You and I talked about that earlier, but can you talk some about where you see in our scripture, which is where we go to, right, for help, for, we connect with people there who are real people. Share some about the Bible stories that make you think about this particular topic.
Well, I looked that up because I think we get some scriptural amnesia and we forget that there's
right.
something. But when you look at it, there's like some biblical figures that really struggled. And I'm kind of read through those.
Yeah, please.
David was troubled and battled with deep depression. We see 3/4 of the Psalms are laments, like, oh my goodness, how much longer do I have to deal with this? We got the prophet Elijah that was discouraged and weary and afraid, and he actually ran away after a miracle that he created. He goes off and he just like, just kill me. I don't need this, right? Then we have the prophet Jonah, who was angry and tried to run away. We've got Job, who suffered great loss and devastation and physical illness. And he said it'd been better if I hadn't been born at all. Yeah. And then we've got Moses, who was grieved and said, over the people that he was trying to take care of, is like, how much longer do I need to be with these people to just take me now?
Yeah, he said, kill me now.
Yeah, kill me now. Jeremiah has Lamentations. He writes it in there, and there's Lamentations 3, where it's like 19 verses of how much longer can I deal with this pain? And then you got Jesus himself, who was anguished in the Garden of Gethsemane. So there's great pain there that we're seeing that is in our scriptures, and we know that there's always in those there's a yet or a but I know that you're my hope. But we do get to see the other side of it. Yeah. And so we have to remember as a Christian community that Jesus reached out with great compassion. Yes. He didn't avoid. He connected. He cared. He was curious. Yeah. And so we have to almost approach that in that spirit of helping these folks that are hurting so bad and helping them through the season of what they're dealing with.
And so there's actually some things that we can do to help us through. You mentioned Elijah, and I heard someone talking about him recently, in that situation where he was like, done. Yep. He went and got a meal and a nap And he felt better.
Chick-fil-A is awesome, but it's not open on Sunday.
Yeah. There are some practical, real life things that we can do. That's obviously what counselors kind of help put tools in our toolbox to think through. So let's talk to the people who are watching now who might say, I'm the one struggling. Yeah. You know, if I'm the one struggling, what can I do? If I'm having thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore, am I in trouble? You know?
Well, specifically, I mean, there's been things in my life where I would sit and say, it'd be better if I didn't wake up tomorrow. Or this is too hard and I just wish it would end.
Yes.
We have thoughts. A lot of people have thoughts.
Right.
As a counselor, that doesn't scare me. I want to know at what depth are the thoughts. I hear people say, well, I just rather, I don't want to say this, but it's just better if I don't want to be here tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So tell me how what pain are you in that would help this be the solution for it? And they'll say, well, I really don't want to kill myself. I've got other people and I've got loved ones. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Let's just talk about the pain.
Right. Yeah, what you're feeling.
So I wish I wasn't here anymore. I wish I didn't wake up in the morning. And even Job said, I wish I wasn't born. Yes. So we look at that. But there's kind of, when you come down here, there's some specific things that as therapists and other helping professionals, we're looking for of certain risk factors.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's important.
Yeah. List those off for us. Tell us what some of those are. So
looking at one is your childhood developmental trauma. Were you neglected? Right. Was there family violence? Was there physical violence or sexual abuse? Is there depression or mental disorders or substance abuse that's going on? Certain medical conditions that you're dealing with, chronic pain or certain other things. What's going on in your life right now? Was there a prior attempt of suicide? Right. Is there a family history of mental disorders or substance abuse? Is there there's a family history of suicide? Do you have the ability to complete suicide when it comes down to it? I watched something over the weekend on CBS Sunday Morning. There was a lady, I think Melissa and Doug. They make toys.
Yeah, sure.
And they've been making them forever. I remember that, she dealt with depression. They called it existential depression. She said that she had. I think she got that from Viktor Frankl's Man Search for Meaning, saying it's just like this, like, why am I here? It was so devastating to her. She said that she actually, weapons. Or 50% of suicides are from hands of guns. Yeah. But she said that she would come up with researched. Well, that's going to be a clue to me that someone's researched of the type pills that she could take. She carried those around with her for a year. Wow. So when you're talking about this, have they done some research into it? Have they looked into this? I think we need to know that stuff. And then has there a cluster of people committing suicide, or has there been a famous celebrity, Robin Williams killed himself not too long ago. And so just having that happen, that could spark some things, saying that might be the solution. Right.
So would you say there's a difference between having thoughts of suicide, which it sounds like could be sort of normal to just feel like at times I'm done, why am I here? There's a difference between that and a plan.
There is, and there's a process to the plan. Yeah. So when we look at it, there's a book that was really good. It's called Why People Die by Suicide by Thomas Joyner. And he really outlines three things. It's like a process. So the process is, first, you start to feel like I'm all alone. And when you really look at that, I think I saw this, a BBC Planet Earth. Yeah. And on that, they had these African wild dogs. I wish I had to show you here. But it's this zoom above these dogs. They're walking down a trail. There's a bunch of them. And you can see up ahead of them, there's this herd of impalas. And so the narrator's saying they're gonna go find one, get them off to the side, and they're going to kill it. So you see these dogs, and they're walking down the path, and all of a sudden they scatter. And that was eerie to watch, the scattering. And they're going to go try to get one off to the side. They finally get one, chase it down. It gets into the water, gets away. They're looking at it. They're just looking at it. And they hear a different call out from one of their other wild dogs, and they know they got to kill, so they left. The point is, when you get off from the herd, that's dangerous. Wow. The wild dogs are representative of those thoughts that we have and how they just kind of overtake us. Mm-hmm. And we need the herd in order to get through this stuff. Yeah. So being alone is number one. I am alone. Mm-hmm. Number two is I am a burden. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a burden. Yeah. I can't reach out to anybody. If I reach out to them, then I'm just being a burden. Mm-hmm. That isolates you even more. Yeah. And so we as helpers, family, whatever, it's good to notice, is this person changing what they're doing? But they're not reaching out. That happens a lot. Sure. They didn't reach out. No one said anything. Mm-hmm. And that's just like, why didn't we see it, right? Yeah. So I'm a burden. That's number two. And number three is that you've actually, you've desensitized yourself to the fear of dying. And that's a process. In this book, he actually looked at it and said, hey, it happens over a long period of time. It's gradually accumulating experiences that reduce the fear of self-harm. Mm-hmm. We're experiential creatures. So like, when you try this, you feel like you learn that you can, then you do it again, and I can do it even more. And so it takes that and puts it on the dark side. It says, okay, well, maybe I cut myself, or maybe I drive really, really fast, or maybe I jump off of this thing to see, or maybe I just take a few pills to see how it feels. Right. It's just kind of, we're trying to desensitize ourselves to that. So I'm alone, I'm a burden, and I've desensitized myself to that.
That's so helpful. And I think, think about some of the stuff we've talked at church over the last little bit, dealing with the spiritual realm. And when I hear you talking about that, I see that at play, because those things can become lies that we hear, in the spirit, that I'm alone. That could be a lie. I'm a burden. That's right. Almost always a lie. That's right. And then even the thought that you would harm yourself, there's some kind of darkness that's at play there. And it makes me think of the spiritual principle that I've seen time and time again. And Romans talks about this a little bit, but bringing things to the light takes away the power of the darkness. And so often we just deal with stuff inside. That's what I've seen with pandemic so much, is we are dealing with so many things out of community, isolation. And so it's staying in the dark in a sense, and just the power to speak that out. Like if you wanted to live chat in prayer right now, you're watching this, or you need to talk to a crisis counselor, you will be amazed at the power of bringing that into the light. It loses its power, once you get it out there and you have somebody say, no, you're not alone. You have this right here, or this is not a burden. Right. When you talk to that person who loves you, that's so helpful.
No, I mean, that's a great thought, because you sit there and look at it and we think about the light. And so when you look at it, let's just imagine a drone. Mm-hmm. And there's a place in Murfreesboro. My family has a place there, a nice, beautiful farm, but right next to it is this dump, right? And some of us get to playing in the dump, and we need a drone view to kind of come up above it and say, oh, there's not only a dump, but there's also some beauty here. When you reach out and you get that light, that's what you're talking about. Like if you get someone to call to someone and let them help get above it.
That's great. So, So let's move from there to thinking about if we know somebody who is struggling. I know many people watching this right now who are on this for someone they love or someone they're connected to. Yes. So what are the signs and symptoms of someone we love, so that we could see that? Obviously, that's one of the huge regrets you have on the other side of suicide is, why didn't I see this? Why didn't I know that? And some of that is just a part of it. But I know you've got a list of some signs and some symptoms that you've researched that can help us know that somebody's actually in that dark place, the deep emotional pain. What are some of those?
Well, I think so. When we look at your point is, you could watch somebody, I say this, you could watch somebody for 23.5 hours and in 30 minutes. If they were really wanting to do something, they can. So it's hard. So that's why we talk about having multiple people to surround to do this. So, but if we have multiple people looking at these things, that's even better. Yeah. So is talking about wanting to die or killing themselves, talking about feeling empty, hopeless, having no reason to live, making a plan or looking for a way to kill themselves, such as searching for lethal methods online. That's what we talked about earlier. Stockpiling pills, or maybe they're buying guns. Yeah. Talking about a great guilt or shame that they've been carrying. Talking about feeling trapped or feeling they have no solutions. And They get in that
Right.
mode. There is no solution here. And feeling unbearable pain, emotional pain or physical, both. Talking about being a burden to others, like we talked about before. Using alcohol or drugs more often than others. Acting anxious or agitated. Withdrawing from the family and friends, that happens a lot. Start to go in your room more. Don't come out. Binge watch stuff.
Gotcha.
Come to find out you just don't like to do the things you used to do.
Yeah.
These kind of things. Changing your eating or sleeping habits. Taking great risks. Things that could lead to death. Talking about death often.
Okay.
And displaying extreme mood swings. When we look at those mood swings, something chemically is probably going out.
Yeah.
And that need to be addressed and helped right there. Giving away important possessions, saying goodbye to friends and family, and putting affairs in orders and making a will.
Yeah. So if we are seeing some of those things, or maybe multiple of those things, or one to an extreme, what are the steps that a normal person like me, what are some steps that could be taken to help somebody? I know, we're all looking for some practical things that we could do.
Yeah. There's a lot of things online, of course, and so we just want to simplify it. The hardest thing is when you have somebody in this situation, people panic. They haven't thought about this, so they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even know who to call. And so they don't know what to say, and hopefully they get a hold of somebody, like we're leading them to the right place. There's multiple places you can call to get help. But the first thing is to ask them, do you feel like that you're going to kill yourself?
Yeah.
You think, well, I don't want to do that, because if I do that, then that's just putting the idea in their head, and that's not true.
Okay, good.
A lot of folks want to be asked. They want to be noticed. They feel less alone, like you said, bringing them into the light.
Yeah.
So they just ask them, do you feel like you're going to kill yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? When that asking is a good question.
Yeah.
Then you want to keep them safe.
Right.
You might ask them, hey, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? Have you thought about how you would do it? You think, why would you ask? You have to. Why have you thought about it? Someone who's thought about doing it, and if you're safe, right? Safe, and they'll start to tell you, hey, I've been thinking about taking some pills, or I have a pistol.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, we're going to take it to the next step. The analogy I use for this is when I go to Gatlinburg, I'd go to the Little Pigeon River and I rock hop. And so we find a rock, and you're trying to get across to the other side, and you on one rock, and you think, okay, what's the next rock? This is like rock hopping. Right. It's like, I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but I'm going to take each step. There, so we're going like, okay, so we're looking at, do you have a plan? And then if you have the means, is there something you do? Can you bring me? Right. I've had people bring me stuff.
Sure.
Like, just bring it to me. Okay. So can you bring that to me? And then listen. Like, this is really important to listen. And we don't want to, there's the do's and don'ts we're going to talk about, but we want to listen. And then we want to help them connect to somebody that's a therapist. If it's crisis, then we want to get to like mobile crisis. Yeah. We need to probably get them to a hospital, that kind of thing, just to have it checked out. But we need to connect with them, right? And then the last one is stay connected. After it's over with, whatever happens, continue to check up on this person. That's why I'm saying it takes multiple people to do this, because we've got that village would help a lot.
Yeah, sure. I love your metaphors, and that one I think can really stick with us to think about how we're going to help somebody. Oftentimes we want to get all the way to the end, but it's like, how do I get to that next rock? Ask them what's going on. I think about how I can keep them safe in that moment. I listen well if there's a crisis, so it's like that really helps me, think, and I've done that, trying to get to that next rock. So that really, I think, will connect with folks that are watching right now. It's like, maybe all I'm supposed to do is get us to that next. Get us to that next
That's
place.
it. Yeah. Maybe all we need to do, like you said, get to the next one.
So you mentioned some do's and don'ts. Let's hear those kind of prevention strategies, right?
Okay. Yes, prevention strategy. So the do's and don'ts. The first thing I'll say, the number one thing is to listen. Listen without judgment. That's really hard, especially when you're scared. because you're listening to somebody and you rock hopped and you look around and like, oh my gosh, it's rising and I don't know what the next rock I'm going to do. So notice that you are going to be a little nervous. But from this, there's a TED talk from from Sergeant Kevin Briggs. He was the guy who patrolled the Golden Gate Bridge in California.
Oh, wow.
And so he had many conversations because that's like a number one place that people will want to check it out or whatever. He said he lost 2 over that number. He said that's too many. Yeah. But he did find that just listening. And he said in that TED talk that people that would come back across that rail said it was just good to have someone finally listen, which again, so if you do nothing else and you're in extreme fear, just listen. You don't have to give advice. You don't have to fix. You need to listen to what's going on, what pain that they have. Yeah. So that's number one. So number one on overall, the universal. But number one on what to do is if you feel you cannot ask this person to seek help, take steps yourself to alert the proper people. Okay. Now that feels like, oh, I'm just going to betray them. Yeah. But look, if you don't go get the proper people, call somebody. You may need a helpline or just a helpline to call and say, hey, I've got this situation. Yeah. What do I need to do next? Because I'm not sure what to do here. Yeah. So make sure that you can call somebody. And then tell the person that you're worried about them and that you don't want them to die. You can say that. Don't say, well, what would I be like if you're not here? Don't guilt, don't shame. Just say, I'm just worried about you. And then we go to point them to some resources. Well, you may have to take them to some resources like the emergency room or call the counselor for them because they're not thinking well, and they need somebody to help them. When we study the brain, you're going to become their executive system. This is the part that has our judgment. They may not have the judgment they need right there. Could you just reach out and be their executive system in that moment? Nice. Yeah. So, and then number 5, if you look at that, is act on your instincts. So, doesn't always work. Yeah. Doesn't always work. For us as therapists, this is I'm going to admit for me. Yeah. It's scary. Yeah. And you don't want to lose this person. Right. And you want to trust your instincts and you hope your instincts are okay. But I've talked to counselors who have lost people and it's like, just like, no. Yeah. No. And so, this is a very hard subject. Yeah. People can get alone and they can start to really isolate and not let you know. Or they're kind of keep it close to them. They don't let you know. So,
and I think that's probably a word of comfort even to interject right now. Again, having been someone who was the last person someone talked to before they committed suicide, and I had the training. I was a pastor. I'd been to school. That there is, and this is a part of my healing is to also recognize that sometimes you can do all that you can do. And I know there are folks watching now who've lost loved ones because they told me they were going to be watching. And there is a part of that where we have to just kind of release that we did what we could do. Which is not to shortchange these things. I mean, I'm sitting here knowing the goal that you're giving us to actually help save lives, but also to just to acknowledge that there is a part of suicide that is that person's self-inflicted harm that we can't ultimately control.
Right. And I think that's really good, Jacob. We can't ultimately control it. Yeah. And that's hard to admit. Yeah. It's really hard to admit.
With that being said, though, I know there are some things that it's just kind of tried and true that you've learned that aren't good to do or aren't helpful. So share some of those with us.
So these are, don't say, I know how you feel. We automatically kind of go to that. Yeah. And, but really, if you're listening, active listening, you might be asking some questions, but you don't say statements. Right. Okay. So that's kind of the thing. If you're starting to make a statement, you probably need to ask a question. Okay. Yeah. So we're actually say, I know how you feel. Yeah. People are like, you really don't. Right. Or then they start to feel
got to shut off. Yeah.
Feel shut off. And don't say, get over it. Yeah. Like, you need to man up, or you need to do this, or that kind of thing. Don't say get over it, because in this moment, if it's a chemical situation, they're not going to get over that. So don't say that, because the research shows that multiple, like 90% of folks were in this situation where their cortisol level was way up, or it was blunted. So in other words, blunted meaning that it was low.
Gotcha.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, they're trying to find ways to do markers at emergency rooms to find out about. They still haven't figured it out. There was a guy from ETSU, East Tennessee State University, who's doing research on this to find how can we find markers to find out, hey, the cortisol is too high or this, and they've got all these different things they're looking at, and they still haven't found it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we can't find it biologically, how do we condemn it by saying get over it?
Get over it.
Right. So that's important to know. And then another one, don't say, well, there was a tornado in Arkansas, and you ever be thankful and realize that other people have it worse than you did.
Yes.
Right. Or, I had something really bad happen to me the other day.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do that. Again, we're making statements. Right. Probably need to ask questions. And don't ignore the warning signs. Even though we can't catch them all, don't ignore them. Notice it. See what's going on. Ask about it. Don't be afraid to ask. Right. I've had some people that I know personally, and they sound depressed or whatever, and I'll say, "Are you okay?" I put my counselor face, like, "Are you okay?" I really "Are you okay?" They probably needed someone just sit and listen to them talk about what pain that they're in right there. So you don't want to ignore the warning signs. And then number 5, do not keep it as a secret. Again, betraying them. Yeah. Secrecy, anything in isolation, doesn't breed good things. Yeah. So don't keep it a secret. Tell somebody else. Get some advice. Don't just ignore it and move on.
Yeah. Wow, that's good stuff to keep in mind. And it was making me think about, Neil. This may be one of my metaphors, and it's not as serious as the topic we're talking about. But you think about when you have like young kids. I can remember times, something like, they're wanting a popsicle, and you go and you got all the different colored popsicles. They want a purple popsicle, and there's no purple popsicles, and they have a meltdown, right? Right. And so as a parent, oftentimes I'm tempted to be like, well, here's an orange one, or and now that my kids have gotten older, I've learned. Oftentimes the best thing I can do is just get there close to them, right? It's just like if they're crying about a purple popsicle, just try to understand that and they can move through it better than if I'm giving them all these other options or these statements or get over it or, that kind of thing. It's like they're feeling something, right? Yeah. And I don't know what cortisol is, or is that what you said? Cortisol?
Yeah, cortisol.
Yeah, so
it's a stress hormone.
Yeah, so there's probably something going on, right. And so what I hear you saying is it sounds like Jesus, right? It's incarnational. It's being close to that person. It's coming towards them, it's being with them. It's listening, and then helping them get to that.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, good.
No, I like that. That's good.
So let's just talk through as we're closing up here. Like when do we seek help? How to seek help? And then kind of what can be done long term. Okay.
So if there's like a consistent pattern of dark thoughts, or deep depression, or this hopelessness or powerlessness, that's a good.
So that's a sign. Like I probably need
to talk to somebody. Yeah. And
so let me just say that again. So like there might be people here that are watching. So like if you have a consistent pattern of dark thoughts, deep depression, hopelessness, powerlessness, that's a sign to be like, I need help. That could be again clicking live prayer right now just to get some prayer. It could be going to that crisis line. It could be calling your friend, right? Getting close, connecting with somebody.
That's right. Okay. That's right. If you're, how to seek help, the one that's suffering or someone who notices it, you want to reach out to a safe, now this is important, safe friend, colleague, family member, clergy, or a mental health professional to do that. Safe is important. Because if you feel safe with them, then you feel like you could probably share more. That they won't share that with other people, unless it's a life or death situation. They have to share. Even as counselors, if you've told me you're going to do this, I'm going to have a duty report. I'm going to get you help to get you through, again, this momentary lapse of reason. It's going to be fine.
Okay.
So reach out to a safe person.
And just in closing, are there some long-term things? I know there are some things that folks who this just becomes a continuing thing that they can do to get help.
Right. So as therapists, there's many things that we can do. For doctors, of course, medication, and some people are afraid of medication. Like, I don't like the way it makes me feel, whatever. Right. I tell my clients, look, we need to turn the music down in your head, or we need to turn the music up. And if we can get a balance there, and I know that these medications have side effects, and we're going to work really close together with your physician or mental health nurse practitioner or whatever. We're going to work really close with them to monitor this, because we don't want you to be in any more pain or trade this pain for that pain. Yeah. So the medication will help us to do the work to unpack the process of the pain or whatever you're dealing with or the season that you're in. So medications are very helpful, but I don't want them numbed out. Yeah, because I'm good. Medication's fine, and they stop coming to talk about what it is that is, like we talked about earlier, the risk factors of childhood trauma or things that have happened to us through our lives that we really haven't worked out yet. Those wounds that we got through life. Yeah,
sometimes those things can help us get to some, like you were talking about earlier with the temperature. We have this presenting issue or this presenting problem. In fact, as I'm getting ready for Easter, I'm thinking about talking about on Easter, what was happening that Easter morning is what the ladies were talking about on the way to the tomb is like, how are we going to move the stone? They were so stressed about that. They were focused on the stone, which is a big deal. That's a problem, the stone. But the real problem was that Jesus had died. Their hearts were broken. And so I was thinking about how, there can be that thing that shows us something, but if we just numb out, then we might not ever get to the thing that's really
we won't even want to go to the grave, right? So we don't want to numb out. So the medication is good. Yeah. There's lots of what we call therapeutic interventions. Okay. They're long names or whatever, but really there's like trauma therapy from things that have really happened to us. Like developmental trauma is the death of 1,000 cuts. Yeah. It's like you just grew up under just really bad circumstances. Yeah. There's big T trauma, like being in war or something really bad happened to you. And then there's cognitive behavior therapy, and that really comes down to, hey, you've got some stinking thinking, what they call automatic negative thoughts, and ants, and how to stamp the ants out, how to take those ruts of your thinking for so long and change them around. Yeah. This is not positive thinking. Yeah. It's just changing to more rational thinking, getting above the dumpster. And seeing. And then there's a thing called dialectic behavior therapy, which gives you some skills to help, like interpersonal skills, distress tolerance skills, mindfulness, how to notice what's going on in your body, these kind of things. So there's many different ways that we can intervene and help. And a lot of it's you unpacking your story. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've never told that before, or you've carried these things for such a long time, and sharing that with somebody that can share that with you, not judge you, and can help you through that. So good.
You've given us a wealth of information and help. I hope you know what a gift you are to our church and to our community. Thank you for preparing us for tonight and having this conversation. I want to speak to our viewers for just a moment, and then have a prayer together in closing. And just say to those of you who are watching that, I know there's been a lot that has come into this. And what I'm hearing from you, Neil, is that there are people who will help. There are people who will listen. And so I've mentioned several times ways that you can do that right in this moment. Providence Church is here for you. Our Providence Care Ministry, which is led by Allison Vines and Betsy Hall, are folks that are going to be available to you, our pastors. So this conversation is not ending just when this video ends. In fact, those who are available for prayer right now, if that's a way that you can check in with a live person in this moment, we'll hang in there with you for a few moments. But just remember these resources and know that you are not alone. I just want to have a prayer with you, Neil, before we close and do a little bit of that spiritual work that we were talking about and bringing things into the light. So God, thank you for this conversation. We thank you for the story that you've given us in the Bible that reminds us that people like David and Elijah and Moses came to these breaking points, these dark places, and you were there and you provided a rescue. As Neil has reminded us, you've given us the great rescue through Jesus Christ, who has come into our world, into our skin, and knows how we feel. And so help us to not feel alone tonight. We pray that this conversation could be a part of saving someone's life. We pray that it could be a part of healing for folks like me who've gone through the devastating loss of a loved one to suicide, and that your comfort, your Holy Spirit would be our comfort. We pray, God, in our nation, that your Spirit would move in a way that would lead people towards life and not towards death, and that many conversations like this could bring into the light where the darkness has no power. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you again, Neil. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And again, we hope to see you soon, talk to you soon. Take care.